you brought up you brought up Atlantis, and that's something that I'd love to talk a little bit more about there. Um, Going through your birthright lectures, and I know that you cover way more information inside your birthright book there. You were talking inside there about, and I am 100% with you that these beings they had to have had technology that would just fry our minds to even try and conceive what they had access to. Um, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Atlantis, I know at least in my understanding, and I believe it's in your understanding as well. Atlantis would have been a antediluvian place.
Yeah, Atlantis was certainly a civilization that existed in the antediluvian world,
Okay,
according to Plato's account.
okay, and I'd love to have you on again to talk more about your birthright book specifically, and sort of the trek that we see the Watchers take
Sure.
in taking over. What was rightly given to man. But you talked inside there about the empire of the gods, and then that very quickly segued into the Atlantis account, and you had these kings set up on the earth that were Nephilim kings. They were part human and they were part watcher, or part. I know that you had a bit of explanation around the idea of fallen angel, and how you talked about angel, the definition actually being messenger, and so I like that you chose to use the term watcher, and then sons of God, more in the, I guess, specific as direct beings created by God. But you talked inside there about them being so not just technologically superior, but militaristically superior in terms of what they had at their disposal, that the only place that could withstand them was Athens. Could you go into a little bit about that?
Well, I believe that first of all, I believe that Atlantis was real. I happen to believe
So do I.
that Atlantis was a real civilization, kingdom. And most of what we know, in fact, nearly all of what we know about Atlantis comes to us from Plato in his Critias dialogue. And Plato's dialogue happens to be a allegory. It happens that it's also an allegory of the antediluvian world. Now, whether that is intentional or not by Plato, I don't know. But in the Critias, it's Solon of Athens, by the way, that is speaking with one of the priests of Sais in Egypt. And the Egyptian priests are the ones relating to him, to Solon, in the Critias dialogue, the legend of Atlantis. And they tell Solon that Atlantis, that in the beginning, when the gods were apportioning the earth amongst themselves, so just pause there and let's reference, by the way, the story of the Watchers is not told in the Bible. It's told in the book of Enoch.
Yep.
It's referenced in the Bible, but the story is related in the book of Enoch. So you have this scene in Greek mythology of the gods apportioning the earth amongst themselves. Well, I believe that's precisely what the Watchers did. There were 200 Watchers that descended in the days of Jared in the antediluvian world. And in my book, I suggest that there were three things that the Watchers wanted, that this scheme of theirs, it was not impulsive. They had a plan, and they executed their plan. And the three things that they desired were they desired to marry the daughters of men. That's apparent. They desired to procreate their own offspring with their wives, with their human wives. That's also apparent. So the first two things are apparent in the text, in the Enochian tale. The third thing is inferred. And the third thing that I say that they wanted was dominion of the earth. Because by copulating with human women and procreating offspring, sons, who were hybrids, who were part watcher and part human, human from their mothers, they would have created offspring who were human enough to inherit the birthright of Adam. I struggle trying to explain this because it's so technical and complex. I'm trying not to divert us into a conversation about dominion. So
For sure.
I'll say that again. So I believe that the third thing and the most critical thing that the Watchers wanted was dominion of the earth. And they could not obtain dominion of the earth themselves. And you'll understand this if you read the book Birthright. I'm not just inventing this on the go.
Yes.
The only way to obtain dominion of the earth was through the offspring of Adam, because dominion of the earth was bequeathed to Adam and his offspring for all time. That's in Genesis. So in order to have any authority on earth at all, first of all, you have to bargain with the vice regents, who are the offspring of Adam, both through the line of Seth and through the line of Cain. And then if you're going to have direct control, then you need to exert what I call rule by proxy through your own offspring who are human enough to execute, to appropriate that authority, the authority of Adam, the birthright, to inherit the birthright and appropriate that authority. So they would have had to create hybrid offspring in order to govern the earth from behind the thrones of their hybrid sons. Now, going back to the story of Atlantis. So we find the gods apportioning the earth among themselves, just like I think the Watchers did. And that means they're dividing it up. This is going to be my territory. This is going to be your territory. That's going to be your territory. And they're going to create their own kingdoms within their allotted realms. And so what do they do? Well, we know what they did because Plato tells us what Poseidon did. The god Poseidon, I'm sure this was, and I know that this was indeed replicated by the other gods. Poseidon, he gets the portion, as his portion, Atlantis, the area of Atlantis. And what does he do? He goes and he marries a human woman, a daughter of a human being, of a man. He takes her, weds her, copulates with her, and she gives birth to 5 sets of twin sons, the chief of these being Atlas. And these sons, who other sources describe as giants, the giant sons, and indeed Atlas is described as a giant within the Greek mythos, these giant sons become the kings, the rulers of Poseidon's kingdom, Atlantis. So it's not Poseidon who's ruling over Atlantis, rather he's ruling by proxy through his hybrid sons. So this is the modus operandi of the Watchers. This is precisely what they do. And so you have these 10 twin sons of Poseidon who are ruling over Atlantis. And Atlantis wasn't just a city. It held sway over, according to Manly P. Hall, the celebrated Masonic scholar, Atlantis held sway over 7 islands and 3 continents. And returning to Plato's account in the Critias, the Atlanteans became haughty and they became hostile to their neighbors. And they went on a warpath. And they were easily subduing everyone they encountered until they encountered the Atlanteans, whose patron deity was Athena. And the Atlanteans were the only kingdom, according to Plato, who were able, according more specifically to the priests of Sais, who were able to withstand the Atlanteans. And they were locked.
Oh, you mean the Athenians?
What did I just say?
You said Atlanteans. I think you mean the Athenians.
Athenians rather were the only ones who could withstand, who could buttress the conquest of the Atlantean Empire. The advance of the Atlantean Empire. And they were locked in this war when a great cataclysm ensued. A cataclysm, by the way, that not only destroyed the kingdom, the empire of Atlantis, destroyed their capital city on the island of Atlantis, but also the entire world. And that's a detail that I think a lot of people miss. It wasn't just Atlantis that was destroyed. Everything was destroyed. The Egyptians make this clear in the story, in the account, in Plato's account, as they are relating this to Solon. They say that the world has succumbed to many cataclysms, right? You Greeks only record one, and so the world has been destroyed by many cataclysms. So this cataclysm, the cataclysm of Atlantis, which was primarily apparently an aqueous cataclysm, destroyed the Atlantean Empire and destroyed the Athenians as well, the other and all other, one would assume, civilizations that existed in the world at the time. Well, of course, that syncs perfectly with the Enochian tale, the story of the Watchers, because what happens after the Watchers apportion the earth, and which is inferred, I'm inferring that that's what they did. It's not directly in the text. It's there indirectly, and they begin to execute proximal authority through their sons. They rule the world. They rule their kingdoms from behind the thrones of their hybrid sons, who are human enough to inherit the birthright of Adam and execute his authority on earth as kings. And what happens next in the story, in the Enochian tale? The giants who are ruling over kingdoms go to war with one another, just like in the story of Atlantis. They go to war with one another. And what happens either during or in the aftermath, I think it was probably during this conflict, this global world. I'm trying to think of it because wouldn't be the first World War. It would be World War Zero, really. A cataclysm ensues, and the empire of the gods is what I call this scenario, is utterly destroyed in an aqueous cataclysm, in the cataclysm of the Noahic flood. So you have a mirror. You have a at the very least, I say, if Atlantis was not a literal kingdom, a literal civilization, then it is at the very least an allegory of the antediluvian world.